from BMW.
Thank you,
I do want to shift gears over
Go
here
for it.
to my next topic. You know, I know you founded company last year, Coronet blockchain.
Yes,
So
yes.
you went all the way
Absolutely.
from working for big management consulting firms to founding
Yes.
your own business. So let me ask you, in terms of entrepreneurship, where did you start? Why did you start? How's it going now?
You know, my co-founder and I are very fortunate that we both grew up in very entrepreneurial families. You know, let me explain. My mom raised us, five of us as boys, single-handedly, and in order to kind of like meet month-end requirements or whatever overheads she had, putting us through school, feeding us, she was very entrepreneurial. Whether it's buying bus tickets at bulk and leasing them out to passengers on the spot, or it's taking up a bit of a media move, taking up a camera and kind of like becoming a self-taught photographer at weddings or whatever events. So she was very entrepreneurial. I observed her, and she would sometimes start things and leave them to me to manage them. She will say, okay, you run the photography business. Okay, you run the ticket business. Okay, you run my small retail business. So it threw me in the deep end and began building muscle memory of understanding moving parts in business, even long before I went into consulting. So opening this business was a homecoming experience for me, because I had to now come back home to business. My wife and co-founder of Coronet blockchain, from the age of 6, she followed her dad, who was a woodcutter, and also she calls him a bush mechanic. God bless his soul. She used to follow him up a mountain where he would go and fetch wood for the village in order to distribute it and sell it door to door or sell it to the retailers. 50% of every household in my wife's village of birth was actually made up of entrepreneurs. They were very small scale, they were very hand to mouth, they were very sustenance, but the principles of business and the work ethic that comes with it and the relationship ecosystems, they began to dawn on you, which is why my co-founder and I, when we went into business, we were not deluded to say we are becoming our own boss and all those rhetorics that people they throw around. You are not your own boss. You are here through technology, through blockchain, to serve the needs of Africa, to serve the needs of emerging market. If anything, Africa is made up of 1 billion citizens. Those are 1 billion bosses that are hoping that we will get this equation right. So I think us having a head start early on, obviously when we're in technology, you know, somebody made this comment in Silicon Valley. There is startups and then there is tech startups. Tech startups are in a league of their own. Things happen at a neck break speed. One moment a startup could be listing tomorrow, the next moment it is hanging on the ropes, almost dying. So it's very fast paced, but with tech, the hyper growth that you could navigate is actually born out of your own personal growth and your own personal sobriety and your own personal support mechanism and your own personal willingness to push the envelope and do 18-hour days and do 20-hour days and work until it hurts, until such a time that your profitability deploys teams to take away the burden of co-shouldering the work most of the time by yourself. And IBM is doing that. They're bringing in their teams to really kind of like mechanize our operations, even as we are about to expand into post-pilot mode.
You mentioned some critical terms that people get to forget, okay? Your personal incredible story, you know, it's simple for me. I understood that you're going back to entrepreneurship. You're not discovering the new world because of of your own background, and that's amazing. That's really, I applaud the achievements that you were able to. Yep, absolutely. This far. At the same time, you know, we tend to forget. It's very simple principles of entrepreneurship. Okay, we hear in the United States, probably in, you know, in other countries and other parts of the world, that entrepreneurship, it is about being your own boss. It is about what? Attracting investors. It is about following your dream, which is true. At the same time, right, the critical, absolutely critical point that you mentioned, you're not your own boss. You are either boss of your clients, people around you, community you're serving, right? Those who trust in you with their funding, with their own lives sometimes, right? And that's what making your work 24 hours a day just to be able to live up to those expectations. And
to be able to juggle all those expectations and still remain sane and still remain effective and still remain innovating and still remain authentic.
Authentic. And, you know, I would add one more, humble to it. Humble.
That's true. Still remain down to earth. I love that part. I'm actually making a note of that. It is correct. Sometimes we do these things, but until you kind of like put a phrase to it, remaining humble, you don't realize what you're doing. If it's the winning formula, you've got to nail it to the wall and keep repeating it just like that.
Exactly. And to me, humble, it really means that you do what you do for your own reason, but don't get too full of yourself, right? No matter how big your mission is, right? No matter what are the aspirations and huge promise your new venture, right, is going to put out there. Do your graduate work.
Yes. I think talking about humble, I would like to add an agricultural component to it. To say, you know how some people, when they use the word humble, it just dawned on me now. I didn't know this. It's just coming from my subconscious. So I'm not an authority on it. I'm sharing my heart within this authentic space. So when you speak humble, they often use phrases like down to earth, right?
Okay.
It's a very interesting phrase they're using, because your humility would, I think from experience in the last 10 years, your humility would not only depend on your commitment to be real and to be humble, but it will also majority depend on who's with you in the elevator, who's with you, who's around you. Are they building a pedestal for you, or are they helping to keep you humble? Because humility is your core value. That's number one. Number two, I shared something earlier today that, you know, COVID has put restrictions that are taking us back to the basics, whereby you say a notice that only two persons allowed in the elevator. So humility means, who is with you in the elevator? Is it someone who's telling you, come on, you are larger than life? Or is it someone that says, you're so successful, but remain down to earth? It's in your best interest. So it really matters who's with you in that elevator, because it's a restricted number that you can take with you, even as you shift the floors from floor 20 to floor 2021. As you shift the floors, it matters who's with you in the elevator. Are they supporting your value? I mentioned agriculture. Are they good soil around you, or are they acidic soil? So you mentioned a very critical thing that just triggered something. I had to share it from my heart
I'm glad
to your
I could
audiences.
contribute. Yep, I'm glad I could contribute to your day, maybe.